All right, welcome back, everyone, to the Collective Intelligence Block Party. We are just jamming and having such an incredible conversation. Jackie, you were in the middle of sharing. You want to share what you're eating? I think it's pretty cool. I didn't even know this existed, and so, yeah. Oh my God.
One of my guilty pleasures that I work really hard all week to earn, because it's still, junk food is junk food, but we get to our taste buds get to play with all these flavors, that are so much more is available in the plant kingdom than ever could be from this prescription of flesh and the choices of flesh that we're supposed to have. So much has been eliminated. And I have to tell you, from transitioning to being plant-based, not only was it a gift of health, but I've learned cuisines from all over the world. I've learned about textures and to play with food and colors and spices from all over the world. It's just introduced me so much more to all that there is. It's been a beautiful transformative experience. So to be able to even talk about bringing this awareness and gift to other communities, like so they can experience that awakening, my taste buds. Oh my goodness. And now in this community, I have so many friends from so many different cultures. And so the potlucks, oh, divine, absolutely divine. I just love this lifestyle because it's so inclusive, it's so varied, and it's so loving. And when you eat with compassion and you eat compassion and love, you just transform yourself from the inside out. So that's how I know it's a loving gift that we're imparting on our brothers and sisters when we go to Brooklyn and move on. Because this is the way to live totally in alignment with who we are as human beings, with our Mother Earth, with our brothers and sisters that don't look like us, or don't sound like us, but they are us and we're all the same. And so I get to celebrate with Ben and Jerry's, because even that is available to you as a vegan.
Awesome. Thank you, Jackie. Oh my goodness. Wow.
I just like to add that that's one thing I found as well. I've always, and my dad would be the same, and as well as our family, very resourceful and open to like tastes of the world and cooking all kinds of curries and but from like not jars or packets. We always did things from scratch, so we were always kind of good at it. But I stopped doing that for a long while, and since I went back to, started plant-based, I find I'm cooking a lot more like how I used to, but like that as well, exploring a little bit more. Like we had a Mexican night there the other night, and like Indian, and doing all different things. And even Kev would be very new to the vegetable world, and he was saying like, it's actually more flavorful. It's absolutely beautiful, and we're like that. You can't do that with meat. What you get from the veg, and including the spices and the herbs and all those as well. So I'm just grateful that it's getting me back into the kitchen like how we used to, and again, not eating from packets or jars and the unhealthy ways of that, like, and just cooking my own stuff, and I get great pride out of it. So yeah, but to know I can eat Ben and Jerry's, that's great, because I am a chocolate lover as well. Like I often said, like again before I was plant-based, that if I turned diabetic, which I thought I said, I would put myself in a diabetic coma because I wouldn't give up chocolate. Like it's my favorite thing. So to know I can still have like the branded treats particularly is really nice. Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm right there with you, Stephanie, because for my birthday cakes, everyone knows you can have a chocolate cake, chocolate frosting, chocolate chips, chocolate shavings. As long as it's chocolate, it's good. So I never had to give that up. It's such a blessing.
Awesome. Well, I love my chocolate too. Good stuff. Oh my goodness. Wow.
Well, can you hear me there, Jamin?
Yeah, James. Yes. Welcome back.
Sorry, I lost my sound there, so I had to switch off and come back on again. Yeah, it's ironic because I came in as well as Jackie was speaking, and I really liked your suggestion there, Jackie, of you know, about contributing or using more of the experimenting more. So you gave me a great idea with the Ben and Jerry's anyway, because I was just sitting down eating a bowl of chopped fruit salad in pear juice. So ice cream sounds nice with that now, so I'm going to the freezer. Thank you.
I forgot to add one little point. My main point was how much food I can cook with so little money. Like, it's actually like, once you have all your pulses and your beans and everything else, you can literally make a community worth of food out of a week's worth of what normal people would spend on a shop, you know.
Wow. And with that, I just have to flash onto the screen, however momentarily, when we did exactly that at great scale, the community cafe, feeding a whole community, the whole community of Rosamond, California, at their annual Parade of Lights, December 5th, 2015.
How many people did you feed, do you think?
It was, I don't know, in the low thousands, probably maybe 2,000 or 3,000, something like that.
And this was a one-day event?
One-day event.
How long did it take you to plan it?
A few weeks. Yeah, few weeks. Anyway, community cafes. And now we're basically talking about mobile community cafes where we deliver. Hey, same basic concept.
What should be our next steps individually when we're away from the block party now? What should we be working on and focusing on and be prepared for the next meeting?
Yeah. Great questions. So one thing I would do is definitely work on the schedule of meetings, you know, within the block party and within the Solution Club. Being mindful, of course, I assume you know that VCI now happens within the Solution Club starting at 5 p.m. Pacific time. So basically the last 2 hours of the Solution Club will be VCI. Isn't that super cool? Talk about a community of communities, right? All coming together. And they'll be so excited about this. Oh my goodness. Because this is going to become, you know, the big vegan project, period. Right? And, well, yeah, perhaps. We'll see. We'll let VCI figure it out as a community, right? But anyway, we'll definitely roll it out for them. For them/us, because we're part of VCI, right? And proudly so, happily so. And thank you so much, Jackie, for all your awesome, you know, communicating there. I mean, it's just like, wow. Because Silas, you know, got in touch with me the very next day, and we talked it over, and it was just like, heck yeah, let's do this. So thank you. See, you're bringing us together. Jackie. So within the remaining time, which is still 6 hours of Solution Club prior to that 2-hour VCI, that's a lot of hours. And of course, the block party itself is a lot of hours. And I think a significant area of opportunity for us is doing essentially better city planning within those big blocks of hours, right? It's an area of opportunity, but here's the thing. The crows are calling. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, sweetheart. The clock. Anyway, the help me out. What was I saying? Oh yeah. So I'm just thinking that like let me just give an example. If we just had a meeting about Brooklyn permaculture, right, and that was it, but we forgot about Brooklyn community gardens, it'd be like, ooh, that was really not cool, right? And we talked about religious organizations donating food and cooking meals and all this, but we forgot the what would you call it? Non-secular, the non-religious. I forget what you call it. Secular. But we forgot about the secular. That would be an important missing, right? So we don't want to miss anything is really where I'm coming from. And I would extend this way beyond the usual suspects, to quote Melissa's grandfather, Howard Koch, who wrote Casablanca. Because I quoted from that movie long before I met Melissa. But anyway, let's beyond the rounding up the usual suspects, let's also think outside the box, right? In terms of, like, for example, I don't know if I would have thought up divine feminine. I'm so glad you ladies did, right? So let's be open-minded like that. So when we're sharing around the idea, and I also say we do a lot of sharing of the idea, just in our close circles, and just get input and feedback from people. So what do you think, right? What do you think? And I'd say write down everything from those conversations, and then we can consolidate it all in some form. But I say we really start off with these meetings, with this series of meetings. And I think if we're diligent about sticking to the schedule, which there's no reason we can't be. In fact, somebody might want to volunteer to be kind of the timekeeper, to say, all right, we're getting within 5 minutes of the end of this topic, and then we're going to shift gears to that other. Anyway, just something to think about. Because here's where I'm really going with it, is that if you think about these different topics as sort of like vital nutrients, right? We don't want to miss any nutrients in the diet. Like Michael earlier today brought up the, oyster mushrooms, right? And as being like the only kind of food on the planet that has a certain nutrient, for example. So we don't want to miss any nutrients. Definitely don't want to miss any vital nutrients, right? If there's some exotic non-vital nutrient, as long as you get it once a decade, you're fine. Okay, fine. We don't have to hit every single minuscule little checkbox, right? But the big ones, let's check them all, that kind of thing. And even the medium-sized ones, sort of thing. So, and we can start that process right now. Why not? I could screen share and type, or we could just take notes. I think it might be better if we're looking at each other, and we just take, and I just kind of take notes, and then we transcribe it later. How does that sound? Right? So, on that topic, previously we talked about kind of the three big sources of food: community gardens, at-home permaculture, and agriculture. Right? If I'm missing one from that set, if there's a fourth and a fifth or whatever, just say, hey, Jamin,
Can you repeat those again? I don't know if I got them all.
Oh, yeah. So one is community gardens, right? And that's, as we talked about earlier, that's a huge growth opportunity as we talk about turning asphalt into, really substantial plots of agricultural land, frankly. Right? So community gardens, huge growth area. At-home permaculture, right? And actually that does bring to mind yet another one, but I'll come to it in a moment. And then the third one is agriculture, right? Whether small scale or large scale, just agriculture, right? And then a fourth that occurs to me is like a secret love child between community gardens and at-home permaculture, which is community permaculture. Hey, there's this public building over here. Why don't we plant whatever to grow on the side? Rutabagas, I don't know, something, right? Hey, what about the roof of this public building? Could we plant stuff there? Rooftop gardens there, And, can the mayor help us pass whatever, not just ram through, but be thoughtful about whatever guidelines we need for rooftops of buildings, for example, right? So that it's safe and all those good things, safe and healthy and all that, right? Yeah, go ahead, Jackie. Mm-hmm.
Where would CSAs fit in?
Yeah, CSAs are almost like a missing link that's not missing. And it's basically, as I see it, CSAs are a link between the old pre-pandemic and this new system, because they've got one foot in both worlds, right? There are CSAs now, there've been CSAs for years, and there will be CSAs for years. So they're like a species, like when they point out, see that lizard over there? That's been around since the dinosaur ages. It's like, ooh, wow, Well, those are CSAs. They used to be dinosaurs, but there's that lizard is doing just great, right? Having said that, the CSAs might end up being sort of like a luxury that those who can afford it pay for, right? Because look, our priority is just get food to every last one of the millions of Brooklynites, right? Is it Brooklynites or Brooklyners? Brooklynites, right? I don't know. No, Brooklynites.
As far as I know, it's Brooklynites.
Brooklynites? Jackie says Brooklynites.
I'm going to look it up.
All right, thanks. So anyway, bless you. Thanks, Jackie. And so the Brooklynites, where were we?
You were talking about planting on rooftops and
Yeah. Oh, okay. That's right. CSAs. We were talking about CSAs, and but then there will also be kind of hybrid CSAs where maybe, let's say, here's a great example, right? Okay, so there's the stuff that like everybody gets that we make sure nobody misses out on. But then if there's like, a certain amount of a certain kind of produce, let's just say cantaloupes, right? Where there's just only so many. There isn't 2.4 million cantaloupes. I'm sorry, we can't give one to every man. We would love to, but we can't. So, that could be something where CSAs pick up some of the slack there. But then even within the, let's just say the all donation pool that just comes like a river of food winding its way down Long Island and ending up at Brooklyn. Isn't that a beautiful visual? Because that's going to be the reality, right? Anyway, so of this river of food that's coming at us, okay, instead of 2.4 million cantaloupes, there's 40,000. What do we do with them? Well, that could be like a specialty pool that if you're, say, a volunteer who volunteers for like 2 hours per week or more doing whatever, deliveries, right? Working at a restaurant, right? Community garden work, right? Whatever, right? It could even be, daycare for kids at the big park so that the parents can enjoy a couple hours uninterrupted, listening to Carlos Santana while they're down on their knees working with the carrots, right? You know what I'm saying? Volunteer is volunteer. Does taking care of my auntie count? Yes, because you're taking care of one of our blessed elders. You're helping keep the community together. And now she can be happily zooming away.
I have a suggestion.
What you got, sweetheart?
I'm just over.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm popping in and out.
Don't be
Just
sorry.
running between all kinds of different
Don't be
things.
sorry, goodness.
So, I think it comes from the Bible when they say, when it was said, give a man a fish and you feed him for one day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. And I think in parallel to this, I'll just call it community cafe distribution, I think it's going to be really major and important to create permaculture gardens in the city and teach people to grow their own food. Because the food needs to be locally sourced. We don't need to be shipping things and trucking things and putting things on trains. And I also think there's something really healthy about people growing their own food and getting into that rhythm, that slow rhythm of seasons, cycles, slugs, honeybees, because it puts us back into connection with source, back in connection with Mother Earth. And there's something about tending, right? Tending the earth, tending the garden, growing your own food, and you appreciate it more than if it's just given to you. And I'm not saying to not give right now at this time, but I think long term it has to transition over to where we're planting gardens, and also where those who are strong and fit, who can plant, who have a green thumb, that they can train children and youth. But if someone is ill or elderly and cannot, they could either watch, or those vegetables are distributed into the community, which is what the Haida do. When a fisherman goes out fishing, they don't just feed themselves or their family, they feed the whole village. And I've witnessed that, and it's really powerful. And they don't take too much. They just take enough for the village. So I just want to put that on the agenda or introduce that into the conversation. The other thing that's coming to me listening to you guys is there are already a lot of models that exist. Even just here in Seattle, a lot of the Seattle Housing Authority projects, not only are those buildings made of upcycled materials and have solar panels, they also have gardens where people can grow their own food. So there are models for that. There food banks also. There's someone in Seattle who goes around and harvests fruit off of trees where people are just letting it fall to the ground. So we could get a whole, group together in different cities and towns that harvest food and take it to food banks or take it to the kitchens or somehow distribute that food. And I think that's really important, that we get off of being dependent on stores. We start to be able to provide for ourselves and our communities. On Whidbey Island, we have that. We have a Good Cheer. It's a food bank. All the food, which is vegetable, all the plant-based food, it's all organic. We have farm schools on this island. The children at the school before this pandemic, they were growing their own vegetables at school, and the cafeteria is cooking the food the children are growing. It's the first model project in the US that's been approved. And so I think we also need to explore existing models, where we don't have to reinvent or invent everything from scratch. Let's look at models that work. I'll look up some that I know, find links and stuff and send them to all you guys. I think we need to look at those and get inspired by those and grow that garden along with feeding people from food trucks or whatever dishing the food out, right? Sorry, just spit all over James. But I don't have COVID.
Let me get my mask.
I'm going to go chop some onion now and listen to you some more. Thank you for listening.
All right. And I know Melissa's overhearing, so she's overhearing everything I'm about to say. Melissa, you will be happy to know two things. Number one, we're all about working with other people's models and upcycling those models and integrating those models and all that. And some of them are just great standalone models and don't need to be messed with, right? So we're all about that. And in fact, the collective intelligence is all about bringing together not just these different models, but the different communities that are practicing these different models, right? If there's a CSA model XYZ that's popular in New Hampshire, it's popular because there's a community of not just farmers, but also consumers and any other folks in the ecosystem. If there's a delivery person who helps out, great, So anyway, so all that comes into the collective intelligence, right? Anyway, that's one point. The second point is that you'll be happy to know that of the 4 food sources that we've identified for sources of food for Brooklyn, for example, 3 out of the 4, only 1 out of the 4 is the bad guy that you mentioned. And when I say bad guy, I'm exaggerating. It's not a bad guy, but the bad guy of food grown on a farm, loaded up onto a truck, and then trucked in, right? The other 3 are as follows: community gardens, at-home permaculture, and community permaculture.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The other thing, which I mentioned to Jamin before, and it's still in my thinking attic, my attic, is that I love the idea of feeding Brooklyn or feeding Louisville or San Francisco or, wherever. But there's something to be said about modeling these from home. And I'm just going to throw this out there, and Jamin's heard me say this before, that we could potentially start one in Arizona, because you're there with Silesh, Jacque, one in Ireland because Stephanie and James are there, one on Whidbey Island and in the Northwest because Jamin and I are here and John is here, and create these hubs where we are. So if we create the model, why not build the model where we are? Because we're so used to exporting. Oops, sorry. We're so used to exporting stuff, which is fine. But I think if we can build the model sur place, where we stand, and then the model is then used around the world. I just want to put that out there as a possibility as well.
What are you suggesting the model look like for each of us to start out with?
Yeah, okay. So for example, if I were running the project, I would contact all the youth that I've taught with at my sister's preschools who are doing right over here in Hood Canal, which is across the water. They have a farm that's permaculture. They know how to grow things. So, on this island, we have lots of farmers and things. So what it would be is us getting together with those groups, either via personally or via Zoom or on the phone, and talking about this model we've all been talking about and working on, and seeing if they'd be interested in contributing. So for example, across the water from us is Everett, which is a minor city, but it's very low income. It has a lot of people who are having a very hard time, and probably even more of a hard time now. So why not use Everett as our model city for us to take food from this island or Hood Canal or wherever and start feeding people in Everett, for example, and start building community gardens over there. And anything else we want to model, new ways of educating kids, starting with planting, teaching them about planting. And then whatever this baby looks like that you guys have been exploring all day and we've been talking about for months now, with the vouchers that Silesh has been working on, that we have to create this project, right? So if I was doing a public art project, I'd get a concept, a theme, I'd know all the parts, what's going inside, what's going outside, who's going to do what, who's cutting the metal, who's installing it, where I'm buying the metal from, who's powder coat, whatever. I have a list of tasks and jobs, and I find those people who can do those things, like local restaurants here, who's willing to transform their kitchen into a vegan kitchen and start cooking. And then we get volunteers to load up our trucks and go on the ferry and drive it into Everett, start feeding people there, or in Seattle. And because otherwise, we can do it in Brooklyn, but we live here, and how do we get to Brooklyn? And but I think if we create a successful model and say, look at what we did in Everett, look at what we did in, where do you live, Jacque? Mesa?
I live in Queen Creek, but I'm moving to Phoenix in a couple of months.
Okay, so look what Jackie and Silas did in Phoenix, or look at what Stephanie and James did in Cork, Ireland. And then that model can get, I'm going to say sold, but it's not really sold, right? It's just, it's gifted to different communities where they can implement that themselves. And you give them the booklets, you know, here's vegan recipes, here's how to do permaculture. Oh yeah, oops, sorry. Uh-oh. My bad. No.
Sure. So, I really love the idea of the focus on Brooklyn because, like, for example, even though I'll be helping out with whatever local stuff we do here, I'm going to be really focused on Brooklyn. And the reason that makes sense to me is because of the fact that we need a critical mass of focus, right? But the thing is, once we do Brooklyn in such incredible style, right? With, like, you know, Sir Bob singing the song and just this, and so many people just jumping in. I mean, it's going to be a bandwagon
So
thing.
you think it has to be in a big city?
Well, I think Brooklyn is perfect for it because of the mayor, right? Who, I mean, his resume for this could not be more perfect, right? Period. Right? And he has already written a book about plant-based foods and how it changed his life and saved his life, right? Because he was diabetic, right? Or is diabetic or whatever. And is now just in so much of a better place than where he was health-wise. So he's already very public about this, right? I don't think he's going to be very shy about, you know, getting behind Brooklyn Eats, right? So anyway, back to Brooklyn. Yeah, go ahead, Jackie.
I just found a video. I was looking up the name of his book, but I think I just found, it says here, top stories, coronavirus news. And this was on ABC New York 2 days ago. Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams hands out food to residents. So I was just curious to see what it was.
He's already in the business. So this just takes it to every last resident, not just a lucky,
Right.
however many. This just takes it all the way, where we've even gone international. We've got international support coming in. That says this is big. What that says is this is big, right? I don't need support from Ireland to put out a little lemonade stand or something like that, right? On a Saturday afternoon, 50 cents a cup. But, you know, for Brooklyn Eats, this is big. This is big. It's international. And we simply get so much focus on it. And a collective intelligence, a community of communities comes together. And through thoughtful fleshing out of the topic space, like we're going to do per my answer to your earlier question, Jackie, about what can we do, right? That is part of a larger trend that will continue and continue and continue, so that the topic map will ultimately cover perhaps hundreds of topics, right? Just for Brooklyn Eats, right? Everything from special dietary needs, right? To packaging, lots of conversations about that. Testing, safety measures, all the different standards that are relevant. There's a whole new set of standards need to be developed. You know, all this sort of stuff. So our being thoughtful now is the beginning of a trend of being very thoughtful about maps of topics, and making sure that we're really, really thorough. And part of the reason for that is that as people come pouring in, right? Let me just make an analogy of a 10-year-old going to an arcade on a Saturday afternoon, right, with a couple of friends. If all there are there is 1950s pinball machines, right, it's going to be like, wah, 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 wah. But if on the other hand, there's this kind of machine over there, this kind of cockpit over there, where you're like flying through Mars and shit. Whoa, there's another thing over here, and sit down thing over here. You can play with your, wow. Okay, now they're game, right? So we need to have the arcade built out, so when people come, they go like, oh my goodness, wow, they thought of this, they thought of that. And so there's just lots of places to go and stake their plant their flag. And in some cases, obviously in many cases, be the first person to plant their flag in a given topic. In a given place, topos is placed on the toposphere, the topic sphere. So imagine having a whole sphere of topics, right? And there'll be different layers and different ways at parsing through or sorting through or filtering through these different topics. You can say, okay, which of these are geography based? In other words, that pertain to the different neighborhoods of Brooklyn, right? Which of these are, food production based, where we're actually growing food, right? Which of these are food processing? Which of these are food distribution? Which of these are food packaging? So they'll have certain major topic areas, and then a bunch of subtopics under those. And anyway, we'll be very thoughtful about how we map all that out, and about how we provide for newcomers who are just coming into this space to essentially drop their card, so to speak, virtually, drop a virtual business card, right, underneath the glass tabletop, right, at topic XYZ, right? Simple as that. Hey, I'm interested. Anybody starts a conversation here, let me know. There's a good chance I'll jump in. That's what that signals, right? And so let people select them, and then when anyone starts a topic, conversation, boom, a tweet goes out, a Facebook post, or this or that, or whatever, right? However we need to update people, an email, I don't care, all the above. More is better, right? And so what this can do to collective superintelligence is just really amazing, right? What this can do to launch collective superintelligence, because the thing is, fortunately, Brooklyn is a tight enough grid that there's going to be enough stuff going on, right? Like if you took where we are, Whidbey Island, and you said, show me a map showing all the different professional jugglers on Whidbey Island, there might be like none, literally, right? Brooklyn, oh my goodness, there'd be dozens, right? Oh, I can juggle them with my feet. Oh, I can do 17 balls. What, So, I mean, you got variety. So Brooklyn, there's just enough going on that we will be able to, it'll be able to support a really nice, deep bench of a taxonomy of topics, a toposphere, a map of topics. Tell me what sounds best. Just a map of topics, topic map. That's probably the most straightforward. I don't know. I mean, when I say taxonomy, I don't even know what the heck a taxonomy is, because I don't know what like the full complete definition is. I just know what I think about when I think taxonomy, which is like, it's a mapping, but it can be, but doesn't have to be hierarchical. It's just any mapping that can contain interesting connections. It's a map with connections. That's all, right? Think like a map of cities with highways and roads connecting them. It's a taxonomy. Simple as that. So well, look, Well, yeah. Well, I think Brooklyn is perfect for that reason, and for the reason that it's part of New York, which is particularly hard hit by the pandemic, right? And the fact that New York is a real melting pot. It's both a melting pot and a collage, right? Because certain neighborhoods still retain this original character, right? Puerto Rican, whatever, right? And so you don't have to melt in. You can hang with your people, right? And so I'm curious to know what Jackie thinks about going local rather than going. Wait, going local versus what? Local versus Brooklyn. Well, first of all, it's never an either or, but let's hear what Jackie has to say. Yeah. I'm going to go on mute and we're going to listen to Jackie. Did you hear the question? Going local, like doing something in Everett, Washington, and something local in Arizona and something local here, something local there, versus bam, just doing Brooklyn.
Doing both. I'm always doing both. I'm always working on the macro and on the micro. And one feeds the other.
Yeah.
Like here, I think, like for instance, we were giving out vegan food boxes for those locally economically affected by COVID, and they have no groceries. And so we're now preparing to do our second round. Although we know that in the immediate, we're helping people right now, but it still feels helpless because we know there's so much more on a grander scale we could be doing. And as we work on this, it informs the local work. So my idea is to harness the wisdom and the talent that's happening locally there and bring that connection to all of it, kind of like that giant umbrella. I think we need to start working together, all the local ones, and helping, like you said, with the models. Yeah. What are they doing in Brooklyn that we don't know we could be doing here? What are we doing here that we have yet? I think it's an opportunity to, when we do this in mass scale, to bring us all together so that it informs locally better what we're doing. And I also think it empowers us. We feel so alone, like we're doing this, but to understand that there's communities all over and we're all aware and we're all doing it, I feel even more empowered. I feel like I'm making even more of an impact locally. So I think we really do have to do both.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a lot of work, but it's necessary.
I think that's a good suggestion, Jackie. Thank you.
Beautiful. And and here's the thing, by creating a unified planetary collective intelligence, and James, I know you got your hand up, so I'll pass it to you in a sec, but by having this fully united planetary collective intelligence, if somebody in Madagascar wants to go hang out in a meeting that they're having in Taiwan about distributing rice and tofu, I would be the last person on earth to say that he couldn't do that. So the reality is everyone's going to go to where they want to go, right? Now, the fact is we're being particularly thoughtful about Brooklyn. Why? Because we want a press conference in one of the two biggest media hubs in the world. There's LA and there's New York. And Melissa just thought of something. You want to relay it or do you want to say it? Okay.
Burnt the first pan, so I'm trying to be vigilant. But my niece, Rachel, lived in New York worked in New York for a long time and lived in Brooklyn for the whole time she was in New York, like 15 years or something. And she worked for Donna Karan, and she also worked for, who's the big transcendental meditation dude? Who's also a film director. Okay, the name's skipping my mind right now. He's in New York. Anyway, she worked with both those people. And I think Donna Karan does a lot for the community. So I'm just wondering through Rachel, if we couldn't connect with people in New York and Brooklyn, but especially in New York City. But I'm talking about, actors, famous people, basically. And I'll ask her. I'll think of who it was she was working for in a minute. You don't remember who that is?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, so we should talk with her, and she's coming back to Seattle to help her dad, so
Great.
she'll be around.
Awesome. Perfect. Lots of good stuff to discuss. I think this is going to be a stampede, right? This is going to be a stampede. It's not going to be who's going to be interested, who's not going to be interested in supporting this. I mean, if you're a famous Hollywood actor and you're not supporting Brooklyn Eats and mentioning it frequently, it's like, what, do you not get it or something? And so then what we do is we concentrate all these beautiful rays of the vegan sun onto Brooklyn, create a critical mass, and we finally ignite the fire of collective intelligence, right? If I want to light a bonfire, I'm not going to take my one match and just go circle around and around and around, kind of gracing it all with a little bit of heat uniformly. I'm going to hold it under the driest, most susceptible little piece of bark and put my entire eggs in that one basket. And this is just to get the thing lit. Once the thing's lit, we fan those flames. And then you can, if you want to light a newspaper and take it around and throw it here, there, whatever, right? Go for it, right? But let's get the darn thing lit, right? And that's a matter of focus. Now, the cool thing is, just like Jackie said, it's a perfect example. She's already doing stuff in her community because you couldn't stop her if you tried to do that. That's just her being who she is. Now, she's also from New York, right? So you're also not going to stop her from going to New York, virtually, physically, spiritually, whatever, but making it happen there as well, right? So she's kind of like a poster child of the collective intelligence, right? She's participating here and she's participating there. And whenever you're participating in more than one conversation, you're cross-pollinating, right? And that's a good thing. We want more of that.
Yeah, I'm just going to jump in there because
sorry, dude. Diarrhea of the mouth is my dad.
I'm not sure if you're seeing my hand raised there next to Emery's background pictures there or what.
No. I'm so sorry. I just got diarrhea of the mouth, and I just went. I'm so sorry.
It's been up there for over 10 minutes, I'd say, but
I'm sorry.
it's next to the hands on Emery's there, so I'd say it's probably just blending in with all the hands that Emery have on his background. Well, that's the way it looks to me anyway. So. But anyway, I've forgotten what I was going to say a while ago. Anyway, to be honest with you, I've lost track of it. But in relation to what Melissa was saying about doing something here on our own and places and everything else, I understand like that. Jackie has her organisation going and she's working in that situation and what have you. Like at the moment, like many other people around the world now, like I'm one of the vulnerable in society, and I'm confined to home. I'm cocooning, basically. That's what we're advised to do here in Ireland, and that's the term they've called it. Like those who are vulnerable in society are to cocoon, go into a form of cocoon, and we look after you. Like, you know, if you need the food, it'll be brought to you. So it is happening here, and people are looking after each other, and they're doing that in many other places. And I know that they're doing that in different scales as well around New York and what have you as well. That's what I'm saying. When in times of need, people on the ground come together. As for doing something like that, yeah, I agree what you're saying, Jim, and we focus in on Brooklyn as being the place because it is the ideal example. And by example, no, I mean they have everything there. As you said, it's a high intense population in a built-up area. In a built-up area with not much land, grounds, or anything else. And as for us doing the things for here and showing by example, I think we're already doing that. I think us here, we are already doing that. We're already internationally connected. We're already doing something by being internationally connected and sitting down here trying to figure out solutions about what it is we can do to help each other internationally connected. And we're already doing those things, but all we want to do now is to show others and starting with the stone soup solution, starting on a small basis, but leading by example, showing that there are solutions, showing that this is the way we can do it, this is another way you can do it, and you have Silas's apps, you have the food donations, you have the volunteer system, you have the permaculture. A person, you see, I understand, like, I could do a demonstration on how to build how to do a small little raised bed and plant some vegetables in a small little 6x3 area on a raised bed. But you do that if you have the little bit of ground space to do it. Now, a lot of people in Brooklyn are living, as you said, in built-up areas with high rooftops and everything else. Now they're thinking, well, I can't fill the top of the roof up with soil anyway, first of all, anyway, because it will just start causing rot and dampness and leaks and everything else, obviously. But you could still build a raised bed in a frame. You could even have it on wheels. You could even have a maze on the rooftop with pathways going in around the raised beds on frames that are even wheelchair accessible for people to wheeling around them, have the flower bed at a reasonable height for the person in a wheelchair to reach and be able to contribute and help planting the seeds and everything else like that. That's all form of meditation, relaxation, and a sense of belonging, and a sense of there is no greater gift than the gift of giving. We all know that when we experience it at Christmas, when we give gifts at Christmas, when we pass them out, we don't get the gifts. We don't get any of the enjoyment out of receiving the gifts we get ourselves. We get the enjoyment out of giving the gifts. That's the beautiful thing about Christmas, and we can experience that on an everyday basis. Now, we must learn to turn tragedy into triumph. So we need to learn to be, we just need to turn this system back into a system of love. That's all it is, and show all we need to do is show, give examples, give links, give the information. Booklets and things like that are one way, all right, but that's a lot of booklets to be reached out to a lot of people when it can be done on a simple link, a simple video, a little thought and effort put into your video and your presentation onto whatever subject it is we're trying to do. And also reach out to make the connections as well, just so that we have just that little bit of infrastructure ready, and say, this is only a small example of what we, as a small group of putting our collective intelligence together, could come up with. Imagine what we could all do if we do it together, like if we all put our heads together. Yeah.
Love it. And hey, James, please do me a favor, especially when we're like many hours into it. Don't hesitate to just jump in, right? And especially if I'm being a little absent-minded or whatever. I swear I did not mean to leave you hanging, and I now.
No.
Yeah.
I understand that, and that's just me. I have the patience to wait. It's just that I did forget the original point. I was only apologising for that myself. But as we were listening, I ended up coming up with just that last rant there. No, you're grand. I have the patience to wait. As I said, I've done 12 hours already. It only seems like 3, and I have no problem to wait until it's my turn to speak. And
hey,
my hand is raised.
My mom's calling, so I got to take this, and I'll be back. But y'all carry on. You want me to pause recording or keep recording? Let me know. Mom. Mom?
Pause recording.
Pause?
Pause recording.
Okay, I'll pause.